Hello and welcome to the Burn KC ScorchCast. My name is Alex Blackburn, coming at you live from my kitchen, of course, as I do every Sunday. Well, mostly every Sunday. Sometimes it's Mondays, Thursdays, whatever fits my schedule. Yeah, we're back. It's been a pretty crazy day of sports today. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about this week in general, because there's been a lot going on this week in regards to the Chiefs, Royals, Sporting, Kansas City Current, kind of, college football, kind of, college basketball a lot though, and the Chiefs a lot specifically today. Got some stuff talking about the NBA Summer League. Got some wide receiver room news for the Chiefs. Got a little bit of Royals news, some post-draft thoughts that I would like to share. Got some Sporting Kansas City news. They had a kind of tough week, which is not that great. And then other than that, some stuff going on in regards to content I have for this little thing I like to call the Burn KC Sports Talk. So stay to the end to catch a couple surprises in regards to what content I got coming. So let's jump in, let's get started, let's have a good Sunday. Alright, let's kick it off with some college basketball news. So we got some news in regard to local players that just got drafted this past year in the NBA Summer League. I've heard nothing but good things so far. Marquise Noel did have that game where he kind of tried to impersonate Steph Curry. If you saw that video circulating around Twitter, it did not look good. But overall, it's been nothing really but good things. Kobe Brown had 35 points in one game for the Clippers, so that certainly pops some eyes open in regards to him, and just kind of solidifies why he was picked that high and thought of that highly in regard to the draft. Grady Dick has also looked pretty much like a lottery pick as well. He's been a consistent 20-point or above scorer, which is good, very good. That will definitely get him some playing time at the next level. Jalen Wilson, his GM, has said that they really like him there at the Nets. Obviously, he's with Jock Vaughn there as well, a former KU great. So that certainly helps. Think he scored. I think he's averaging around 15 to 20 points as well, which is good. And then, of course, we've got the guys that were already in the NBA to begin with. Udoka Azubuike has an 87% field goal percentage, which is really, really good. Obviously, he's going to be just down low, bullying people, and hopefully that sticks, especially now that he's with the Celtics, where he can get some good playing time on a championship level team. Um, that the Celtics are that, so that's good. Obviously, we got players like Marcus Garrett, Devin Dotson, and others that have been performing pretty well in the summer league too. Um, it's good to see that Christian Brown is not in summer league. That means that Denver is pretty set on him being a long time stalwart in that lineup. So that's good. Other than that, though, I've been hearing nothing but good things about the rookies that were drafted this past year that are from the three big local schools. Pretty solid stuff. Also, Trevor Hudgens, shout out to him. He's been performing really, really well in the summer league too. He's a former Northwest Missouri State standout. Northwest Missouri State, if you don't know, has won a lot of division NAIA championships, as well as um, some Division III national championships too. So that's big stuff. It's very big stuff. Division III or Division II? Division II. Sorry. But yeah, big stuff. In regards to guys that are from here that are making the Mocan area proud. Obviously, Mocan basketball is one of the premier AAU programs in the country for that reason, because there's just so much talent that runs through Missouri and Kansas, and it shows. And I get it, Marquise Noel's from New York, blah blah blah. Jalen Wilson's from Texas, blah blah blah. But having good players at those local colleges that make it to the next level, make it to that next level and excel also accounts for something in regards to building youth basketball around this area. So that's definitely a big thing for sure. Some less than ideal news though, on the college basketball front. Marcus Adams Jr., the I believe 4-star recruit for KU, has backed out of his NIL dealings as well as backed out of his commitment to KU. And this is not very welcome news. Um, it opens up another spot on this KU team that has had a wild offseason. I think they returned like what, 4 guys, so that's huge. So it's going to look like a completely different team, and it's going to look even more different. Even though that you know Marcus Adams barely lasted a summer, so what that tells me is that more than likely he went through that summer training camp and went through those summer games and whatnot, and just saw the competition he was up against. And this is speculation, mind you. This is not anything official, but I think what happened to Marcus Adams was he saw the competition that he was up against at KU and played against the competition that he was up against and just didn't mesh well with the team, and struggled, I would say. Um, I know he was one of the lower scoring Jayhawks out of all the guys that played in that summer scrimmage, so that's a thing. The fact that he reclassified from 2024 to 2023 may have made a difference as well. He may not have been ready yet, so that's also a thing. But overall, I wish him the best. I hope he finds a home somewhere. If it is not KU, I think he still has a lot of talent, and from the tape that I have watched of him, has a lot of talent, and I think he can excel at the next level. Now, where that will be, who knows? But I guess we'll just have to see. So, Marcus Adams out at KU. They may bring in, I believe they were talking about some Australian kid, Jake Fernie, I believe is his name. It's like Jake F something. And I've seen a little bit of tape on him. He looks pretty good. Obviously, Australia has some good basketball there. So there's potential there. A roster spot being filled, and this wild off season for KU not being over yet. So we'll see what comes. I know he's getting offers from Duke, and I believe North Carolina was in the mix as well. So as well as some West Coast schools, because I mean obviously it's Australia, so maybe that proximity to home might make a difference. But Kansas is also in that running, and from what I've heard, Kansas is the top choice right now. So we'll just see what happens. All right, we got some Chief stuff to talk about. A lot of Chief stuff to talk about. Um, let's start first and foremost with the wide receiver situation. The DeAndre Hopkins sweepstake is over. DeAndre Hopkins signed a 2-year, $26 million deal with the Tennessee Titans, and it looks like that's set in stone. It's been confirmed that he will be going to the Titans. Um, if you know, if you know me, then you know that I truly, honestly do not care about this news. I think the Chiefs will be just fine with or without DeAndre Hopkins, and I have voiced my opinion of that multiple times. Um, Am I a little bit like skeptic about the whole fact that DeAndre Hopkins did talk about wanting to get a ring, did talk about, wanting to play for a good quarterback with a good GM, etc. Yeah, and him going to the Titans, he's not really going to get any of that. Um, Ryan Tannehill is on his last legs as an NFL starter. The GM situation with the Titans, I believe they have a brand new GM, don't they? So that's a thing. And then just the track record of veteran wide receivers going to the Titans has not been good. You got Randy Moss, you got Julio Jones, and I believe Kenny Britt started out with the Titans, but I'm not sure. Kenny Britt was okay. Um, but just not really a team very well known for their wide receiver core. Obviously, AJ Brown was not the best example of that, but he moved on to the Eagles for a reason. Um, Again, like I'm not bothered by it, but I am like skeptic of his reasoning behind joining the Titans. Um, So the wide receiver room, as it stands, Kadarius Toney is the number one. Marquez Valdez Scantling number two. Sky Moore probably going to be number three. Justin Watson at four, and then it gets messy from there. Justin Ross, John Ross, um, Richie James is there. Um, Jody Fortson, kind of. He's more of a tight end, but we'll see where he ends up. There's a lot going on. This Chiefs wide receiver room is incredibly deep, and of course, Rashi Rice, the rookie out of SMU, is in that mix as well. We'll see where he ends up on the roster. He could move as far as the wide receiver three position. Um, we just don't know like where wide receivers 3 through 7 are going to end up. Um, so it's a mystery. Um, but it'll be exciting. It'll be a good training camp, I believe, and we will be watching intently at that wide receiver group. Obviously, receiver number one is Travis Kelsey still, but having a good wide receiver will help this Chiefs team out immensely, and I think any one of those guys has the potential, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, to be a game breaker. I do. A lot of people really doubt this Chiefs wide receiver room. I think it's filled with guys that fit the mold for this Chiefs offense. It is just speedsters that can break open that roof, that can um, be open for those deep crossing patterns, and potentially be used as a sort of jack of all trades type deal. Kind of how Debo Samuel's used for the 49ers. Obviously, you don't have the size necessarily of Debo Samuel when it comes to guys like Rashi Rice, Justin Ross, etc. But you do certainly have the speed, if not more speed, than Debo, and it looks it looks bleak because there's no big names on the roster, but I promise you it's not. I've done my homework on these guys. They're good receivers, especially put into a system where they can thrive. And obviously, we saw Kadarius Toney figure that out when he was added on during the middle of the season. Um, we saw Marquez Valdez Scantling go off for a few games. That was good. And I can expect pretty much the same thing. And Justin Watson had his great games. And yeah, we can just anything can happen with this wide receiver room, and I think that's just how Brett Veach, Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid like it. Is yeah, and looking back at Andy Reid's history, he didn't really have outside of Terrell Owens, he didn't really have that absolute like game breaker wide receiver on his roster. The closest thing that I can really think of is what Jeremy Maclin, Jason Avant. Um, in terms of the Chiefs, like Wayne Bowe was here for a couple Andy Reid years, wasn't he? Um, just no one in particular stands out. I mean, I guess Tyreek Hill, but um, I mean, he stayed here for only a few years, so I think this is just how Andy Reid likes it. A bunch of guys that have a high ceiling, and that can have their good games and be kind of interchangeable almost. Um, so that's good. As far as the Chris Jones extension goes, let's talk about the Chris Jones extension. They are still pretty confident that it's going to happen between now and training camp. I am still pretty confident that it's going to happen between now and training camp. I don't really have much of a doubt that it won't. Um, but now we're put in a situation where there is a hole to be filled regarding the cap space that the Jones extension will create. Because a lot of people were like, once the Jones extension happens, the Chiefs are going to go out and sign DeAndre Hopkins. And you know what? I kind of had that feeling too. The more it built and the more Vegas was just like, it might happen, it might happen. Um, but now we're kind of left in a situation where the Chiefs could do anything with this money that the potential, mind you, this is still potential. I mean, it's everybody in the situation is pretty confident it'll happen, but the Chris Jones extension will definitely bring about more cap room. And how that cap room is used is the big question right now. My biggest thing, in my opinion, would be to extend L'Jarius Sneed next. Keep L'Jarius Sneed around, keep that young secondary filled with veteran leaders until this young secondary is fully filled out and can be veterans of their own right. Um, and obviously, L'Jarius Sneed isn't much of a veteran. He's been in the league for what, 4 years now? Maybe. I think about 4 years. I think he was drafted in 19, wasn't he? Um, so he's not much of a veteran. I mean, he's still on his rookie contract, but he's the oldest one out of that group, is what I'm saying. And extending him, well, number one, still keep an elite corner in your secondary. Nothing for nothing, but Trent McDuffie is not an elite corner yet. Jalen Watson's not an elite corner yet. They have the ability to be, but there's still a lot of development to be done with this secondary. Justin Reed even still has some development to do, and he is a potential Pro Bowler. And he's the veteran right now. But he may not be around for much longer. We'll see what happens with him. Um, I think L'Jarius Sneed, extending him is the most sensible option with this new cap space that you create with the potential Jones re-signing. Um, so that's what I would like to see happen. I don't know if anybody out there has different thoughts on it or has a different way of doing things. Who knows? Maybe you still delusionally think that we'll get DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows? We won't. But because even with the new cap space created, there's still no chance that the Chiefs would have been able to match that offer, or offer anything better. So honestly, just Can we please stop talking about DeAndre Hopkins, please? But in other Chiefs news, some off the field stuff. Let's talk about quarterback first because I want to talk about that first before I get into this final topic. Um, my thoughts on quarterback. I personally have not seen it yet. I've seen clips of it. I haven't seen the whole thing all the way through. I've talked with people that have. My girlfriend has. My mom has, etc. And I've seen clips on Twitter. My personal thoughts regarding what I've seen so far. I think it highlights the humanity of people that we really think of as inhuman. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a really good way, as in like their talent is off the charts. I'm talking, of course, about Patrick Mahomes, not Kirk Cousins or Marcus Mariota. I'm talking about Patrick. Um, just the competitive, intense nature of him really shines through in this series, from what I've seen and from what I've heard. Um, and he cusses like an absolute sailor too, by the way. Um, Another thing that I think it does is it really humanizes Brittany too, Brittany Mahomes. And I don't want to make it entirely about her, but I think a lot of people really misconstrued Brittany as this kind of annoying woman that follows Patrick Mahomes around, and has just been like kind of a thorn in Chiefs Kingdom's side, being so she's so annoying. Blah, 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 blah. She's so loud. Blah 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 blah. She sprayed champagne on fans. Blah 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 blah. She's an average football fan. She is. Have you been to a Chiefs game? I've sat with people 10 times worse than Brittany Mahomes. I've been worse than Brittany Mahomes before, and I'm fully willing to admit that. And honestly, like if that was your high school sweetheart that you've been together with for over a decade, wouldn't you lose your mind if your husband was the MVP, the reigning MVP of the NFL, and arguably the best player to be in the NFL? Could very well be the best player in the NFL when everything's all said and done. He's Patrick Mahomes. A lot of y'all don't even know him and idolize the guy like Britney idolizes him. So get over it. And it again, this series really shines in humanizing people and showing exactly what Patrick and Brittany go through on a daily basis. And one of those things is the fact that Brittany's a great wife and mom. And she's a businesswoman too. I mean, she owns the Current. I mean, she's incredibly bright. She's a lot prettier than y'all give her credit for. And she's got a great extroverted personality. What's wrong with that? So, in other words, get over yourself, stop being a hater, quit projecting your insecurities, and recognize that if you were important in that situation, you'd probably do the exact same thing. So, stop. And again, I point back to the article that I wrote about quarterback. We have this distorted view of famous people, athletes, celebrities, etc. Um, that makes us think that we know everything about them. We don't. And I think quarterback does a great job at explaining that, hey, like, this is what the life of a NFL quarterback is like. So, in other words, you judge not lest you be judged. So, but let's get into this final piece of Chiefs news. I told you we had a lot to talk about regarding the Chiefs. This is almost 15 minutes long. Goodness gracious. Um, Probably my longest clip by far so far. But golly, Chiefsaholic, man. $850,000 stolen across what? I think it was like 13 banks, I think is what they said. Like 8 to 13, which is a weird guesstimate, but uh, $850,000 is a lot of money, especially for the stuff that he was using it for. I mean, seriously? I get it. Like going to a Chiefs game is expensive, and betting on a Chiefs game just makes it more expensive. But I mean, come on, dude. Seriously, I understand sports fandom up until I don't. I feel like, and becoming a serial bank robber to fuel your Chiefs addiction is something that I never thought I would see. And the fact that he got caught in Sacramento and, didn't run off to Mexico because he was on the run, like, come on, man. You're a bad criminal and a bad fan. Like, Jesus. I mean, at least he didn't wear his wolf mask while he was robbing banks, I suppose. But, I mean, come on, man. uh, you know, I hope he's learned his lesson. I really do. But I doubt it. I mean, just judging on how he tweeted after he got released on bail and like the fact that he ran away, the fact that he hasn't been to court yet. Yeah, and that's another thing. Like he hasn't even been to court yet. We've barely scratched the iceberg of information that is Chiefsaholic. So let's all just stay tuned because I mean this guy was wanted by the FBI. The FBI. Yeah, it's only going to get more interesting, and the 30 for 30 that is going to come out on this man is going to be off the rails. And I am so excited. Um, and then, sorry to tack on a few things too, but obviously the Chiefs won, best team at the ESPYs. I think Patrick Mahomes won best NFL player. Um, and a few other accolades were given out too, if I remember correctly. Regarding the Chiefs, and obviously Casey current player Sam Muse was on the SPs as well. I think a lot of people were really wanting that Jones extension to be announced at the SPs. I know I was, but um, again, sorry to tack that on at the end. I had completely forgotten that that had happened, and you probably wanted to hear me talk about it a little bit. So there you go. Um, but yeah, lots of Chiefs news. This segment has been way too long. Let's get into some Royals news, shall we? All right, let's talk about some Royals news, shall we? They're still bad. I wish I could leave it at that, but they did win today. They won 8-4. Yesterday, they soiled a fantastic performance from their newer pitcher, Marsh. I forget his first name. Hold on, let me pull that up. Alec Marsh. I should have remembered that. It's very similar to my name. Um, but Alec Marsh had 11 strikeouts, and that got soiled by offensive ineptitude, which seems to be pretty par for the course in regards to the Royals. Um, if pitching does well one day, the offense will perform like crap the next, and if the offense is going off the rails, or you get what I mean, is doing really well, pitching will serve some major suckitude, and the Royals just cannot figure it out. Um, so let's talk about the future of the Royals instead, shall we? Um, some post draft thoughts. I think JJ Piccolo did exactly what he was saying he was going to do in picking players for ceiling rather than MLB readiness. And we probably won't know the repercussions of that draft until much farther down the line. When your first three draft picks are high schoolers, there's room for skepticism. There is. It is JJ Piccolo's first draft that he does not have Dayton Moore breathing down his neck. So that's good. Um, but it's not like it's not a bad draft, but it's certainly not the best draft I think that you could have had. When Kyle Teal is right there and you select Blake Mitchell instead, it could backfire and it could not backfire. um, I think Kyle Teal was the better talent there. I think a lot of people think that Kyle Teal was the better talent there. But Blake Mitchell is number one. He can pitch and catch. He was a USA Baseball U18 player or U19, U18. I can't remember what baseball does. Rugby does U18. That's just kind of what I'm gonna say. If it's U19, correct me if I'm wrong. But he's good player. He's just gonna take a bit to develop in a farm system that is not very well known for developing players. So, in lies the issue with all three of them. Because I mean, all three of these prep guys that the Royals picked, they're they have the potential to be very, very good. We have the top player from Connecticut, that recorded 90 strikeouts this past year, which is absurd. Um, and the other guy, I can't remember. He was one of the top ranked pitchers in the nation. Um, but he was also posting some pretty crazy stats. Um, but we won't know the true greatness or suckiness of these guys until they go through the farm system. They are not major league ready yet. They absolutely are not major league ready yet. The step between high school baseball and the majors is like a 50-foot chasm. And in between that chasm is the minors. 1A, 2A, AAA, majors. The level of competition between even those three levels of minor league is pretty steep in difference. So between high school and the majors is just that much bigger. And you also have college in there too, mind you. Um, you know, college kind of works like the minors. It's kind of a level of the minors. Not really. I mean, I don't know what they want to call it. Obviously, back in the day it was, oh, it's amateur sport. It's not the minors. What are you talking about? Um, I mean, if you go play college ball, it's very similar to playing like 1A or 2A baseball. So there's not much of a difference. Um, but boy howdy, JJ Piccolo really did that. And the college guys that he did pick though were good. I like the picks that he made out of the late round college guys. You got local talent like the Missouri State kid. You've got a lot of guys that have played for really prestigious programs like Vanderbilt, and um, I believe there was a player from Florida too, if I remember correctly. I can't remember off the top of my head. I wrote an article about it. If you want to check out the full list, go check out that article. But overall, he did a solid job. Just looking at the stats that I saw about these guys, I like the college players that he picked, and I hope that they can be more MLB ready than the first 3 rounds. guys, boy, man, uh, we'll see if this works out. Obviously, I don't think I think a lot of people are of the mindset that the Royals are not going to be good for a while. I am of that same mindset of we'll have to wait and see um, just how players develop in one of the worst farm systems in the major leagues. And again, that's the big thing is can this farm system improve to where it's actively producing solid talent? Obviously you got your Bobby Witt Juniors, you got your Vinny Pasquantinos, you got um, all these other guys that came up through the Royals minor league system, and Nick Prado, had high hopes, but are kind of underwhelming at this point. Um, Fortunately for Vinny Pasquantino, he got injured. Bobby Witt Jr. is not as good as he was last year, and Nick Prado can barely stay in the majors. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that farm system is going to have to improve if we're going to be drafting based on ceiling. So okay, Sporting Kansas City time. Sporting Kansas City could have had a better week. They could have. Um, they had a draw and a loss. Um, I haven't quite because the ESPN app did not update the way I wanted it to. Um, Yesterday when I was gathering information. Let's look at the table here. Sporting Kansas City dropped to 11th. They are 2 points behind Minnesota, that is in 10th, and 3 points behind Houston in ninth. Dallas has 30 points. They are 4 points behind them. Um, it's it's not over because you have 9 games. Yeah, 9 games to make up ground. And there's 1 game in August, 6 games in September, and 2 games in October. You're gonna need some help. I'll say that right now. This Western Conference is far too competitive, as you saw by the point differentials, is way too competitive to be losing games anymore. If Sporting Kansas City wants to control their own destiny, they're probably going to have to win out, um, which is unrealistic, to be honest. Um, the draw, I thought, didn't hurt that bad. I thought that the draw against Vancouver would not, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Or was it against Houston? I can't remember. But that loss against Austin is incredibly frustrating. Um, and it was a game that they easily could have equalized, and they easily could have won too. Because let's just look at the stats here in regard to Sporting, and how they did yesterday. Um, and they got, or excuse me, they got 11 games left, not 9, because I forgot to count the. Well, those are okay. That's the League's Cup. Never mind. So that I don't think that counts for anything. I don't think that counts towards MLS regular season. So I think they have 9. So let's look at and it was against Salt Lake. My apologies. Let's look at this. So Sporting Kansas City barely had possession advantage. It was 51% to 49%. They had only 8 shots on goal compared to the 10 that Austin had. 9 fouls to 8, 2 yellow cards to 1, 1 offsides, 2 corners, and 4 saves. compared to Austin's 0 offsides, 3 corner kicks, and 3 saves. It's it's a lot tighter game when you look at the stat sheet. When you actually watched the game, and I watched clips of it because unfortunately it wasn't on TV because I don't have Apple TV because I'm not the richest man alive. So I can't have all these streaming services. You know, I wish I could. Believe me, I do. But um just I mean, looking at this board here, this is a game that Sporting absolutely could have won. Austin Austin was streaking. They're now on a 3-game winning streak, and after they had gotten beat by Kansas City the first time 4-1, they won 3-0 against Dallas, 3-0 against Houston, had a draw against Miami, 4-1 against Minnesota, 2-1. Or actually, no, never mind. I thought they had won against Vancouver. Sorry, but I mean, this was a beatable team. It was. And Sporting Kansas City just dropped the ball. They're looking like they did back in April. Now, they're not putting shots on goal. They're not putting the ball in the back of the net. This is not a team that has the willpower, it seems, to make the playoffs. And what they're going to need to do is either A, find some help from some other teams, and if they can't control their own destiny, which, like I said, they're probably going to have to win out in order to do that. Or, yeah, just I had really, really hoped that they would come away after this week with 2 wins. That would have been the most ideal situation. That would have pushed them way up in the playoff rankings. That probably would have put them in the playoffs with 9 games to go. And it would have been nice. A draw and a loss is certainly not the worst thing that could have happened, but it's certainly not the best. And I would have at least liked 1 win. I don't know about you, but unfortunately, Sporting Kansas City, it looks like they're not going to control their own destiny, which means that they're going to need help from other teams in the Western Conference. Houston's going to have to get beat. Dallas is more than likely going to have to get beat. Minnesota is going to have to be beat. Um, and those are 3 teams that are kind of in the same position as Sporting, as in, if they get hot, then they get hot. And once they get hot, especially now, if one of those teams gets hot, there's no way Sporting Kansas City is going to make the playoffs. So they kind of have to guarantee and hedge on the fact that they're the team that gets hot. They're the team that starts to win, you know, all their games. They're the team that potentially could grab some help and just have that stroke of luck. But we'll just have to see, because frankly speaking, strokes of luck only get you so far, and this is to get into the playoffs, mind you. It doesn't mean that Sporting is going to play well in the playoffs. And judging by these last 2 performances, I really don't think Sporting Kansas City has the horses to compete with the likes of like LA. So we'll just have to see. Okay, final topic for some fun stuff. The KC Current. They're back in last. The loss against Louisville certainly did not help, but Chicago ended up winning their games, or their game, and passing them on the table. I have very little hope for Kansas, or for the Current. Um, they've got a really tough schedule ahead. They only have a few games left. The World Cup is probably going to take a lot out of these the players that are participating, which there are quite a few of them. Sam Muse, Dabina, um, I think a couple others will be participating. I think Muse is actually injured, so maybe not. But it's not last year, that's for sure. It's not the team from last year. You go through these sophomore slumps, especially if you're the runner up. Um, you go through these sophomore slumps, and Kansas City's going through a sophomore slump. And in order to dig their way out of that, they're going to have to win against some incredibly tough competition that has absolutely destroyed them in the past. Let's just have a look here. Let's see who you got on this board in terms of scheduling. Go to Fox Sports here. Go to Kansas City Current. Go to the schedule. So Orlando is the next game. It's August 18th because of the World Cup break. Um, Orlando's a good team. They're 7-3-5. They got, I can't be entirely sure as to where they're at. Um, they're middle of the road in the Eastern Conference. Um, who's OL? Maybe OL is, or maybe have they already clinched a playoff spot? I'm not sure who the Rain are. Sorry. Um, I believe they're an Orlando team. OL, I'm not sure what OL stands for, but Megan Rapinoe plays for them, so that's a big thing. Um, got the Houston Dash, which is not a bad team, but they're a team that has beaten KC in the past. Um, Angel City, again, another team that has been beaten by Kansas City and has beaten Kansas City in the past. San Diego 6-3-6, and Washington 6-6-3. Chicago, and then Gotham to end the season. So a few games to make up some ground, but they're going to need a lot of help if there is any chance at them making the playoffs. Um, Frankly speaking, there probably isn't. I don't want to call this a lost season quite yet, but prepare yourselves for a rebuilding year, for a rebuilding off season, I should say, for the current. Stinks, it does, but obviously, what can you do? Um, we'll just have to see how the ball rolls. Kansas City is still, like I said, struggling with getting shots on goal. Both Kansas City teams are, and it's just not. It's not looking good offensively for either team. Um, but yeah, I hope that all the Kansas City current players that are playing in the World Cup, uh, including Dabina, by the way, who is one of the top goal scorers for Brazil, um, I hope that they can play well. I hope they can represent the current well. I hope they can represent their home country well. And overall, it'll be exciting to watch. Um, but I'm not holding out hope for the current to really do much of anything else. This these next few games. But hey, they got a new stadium coming up. If you pass by it, it's being built really quickly. So that's exciting stuff. At least we got that to look forward to. Just unfortunately, the on the field product was not where it was last year. So better luck next year. So, all right, that's our show. Other than a couple of announcements in regards to some of the content that I want to create over the next couple of weeks. I have officially made the executive decision to make a TikTok and a Threads. If you don't know what either of those are, TikTok is the video app where you make short little ditties or videos of um, anything from dancing to cracking jokes. It works a lot like Vine. If you were around during the age of Vine and you know what Vine is, that's what TikTok is. And TikTok is arguably the most popular social media app in the world right now. Um, everybody has a Facebook, everybody has a Twitter, blah blah blah, Instagram. TikTok has so many users and just so many uses. So I figured, it would be good to get on there. As for the other thing, Threads. Threads is basically Mark Zuckerberg's Twitter. um, and I'm not doing Threads as a sort of political statement. It's not that. I just want to have a bigger range of content. Um, as far as things like Patreon and stuff go, I want to wait a little bit. I know that I had started one when I first started this, and has not gotten any use for good reason. I don't feel like I need to make you guys pay for any content that I put out on this. Um, Eventually, there may be some Patreon content out there. But as of right now, I want to keep these things free. I want to keep the website traffic going. And I don't really have much of anything to put on Patreon. So I don't know why I would do that. So it's TikTok and Threads right now. So be on the lookout for the links for both of those over the next couple of weeks. I will need some time to get those prepped. I am a very, very busy man. So creating TikToks and stuff like that may take some time. It may, be slow at first, but I'm hoping to gather a decent following over on the TikTok app and the Threads app. So those were my big announcements. Obviously, we're going in the next, month or so, going to be announcing fantasy football. We'll be announcing a few other items as the weeks go on. I got a few plans, nothing too huge. But yeah, fantasy football is definitely the big one. Because last year it was a lot of fun. I know I heard nothing but good things from the fantasy football people that ended up winning that. And congrats to Tyler and Clayton for last year's championship. You two did really, really well in our league. So congrats to them. I'm hoping to get a bigger audience for that this coming season. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that, I got nothing else for you. That's our show. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your presence, your reading, and your listening. And I will see you next week around the same time. This has been Alex Blackburn. This has been the Burn KC signing off. Have a great night.